History is a common topic in the IELTS speaking test. In the last two videos, I shared some useful phrases and example sentences on this topic. Today, I'll share questions and sample answers to help you practice these phrases. You can find the link to the PDF document in the first comment. Part 1. Do you enjoy learning about history?
Yes, I do. History helps us understand how the world has changed over time. I especially enjoy learning about ancient civilizations as their achievements often influence modern life.
What historical site have you visited?
I once visited the Colosseum in Rome. It was fascinating to see how this massive amphitheater was used for public events. The architecture and its historical significance left a lasting impression on me.
Do you think schools should teach more local history?
Yes, I think schools should focus more on local history. It helps students appreciate their heritage and feel a stronger connection to their community. It's also a great way to foster cultural pride.
Did you read history books as a child?
Yes, I enjoyed reading history books as a child, especially those about explorers and ancient civilizations. They sparked my curiosity about the world and made me interested in learning more about the past.
Do you know much about your town's history?
A little. My town has a rich history, including old buildings and stories about how it developed during the Industrial Revolution. It's something I'd like to learn more about in the future.
What period of history do you find most interesting?
I find ancient history most interesting, particularly ancient Egypt. The culture, the pyramids, and the advances they made in mathematics and medicine are fascinating.
That's the end of part 1. Now we are going to move to part 2. In this part, you will have 1 minute to prepare and then speak up to 2 minutes. Question 1. Describe a historical event that you think is important. You should say what the event was, when and where it took place, why it is important, and explain how it has affected the world or your country.
One historical event that I believe is very significant is the period of industrialization. It started in the late 18th century and continued into the 19th century. This time was crucial because it changed the way people lived and worked all over the world. Before industrialization, most people lived in rural areas and worked on farms. But with new inventions like the steam engine, factories began to pop up in cities, and people started moving to urban areas to work in these factories. Industrialization led to major changes in society. For one, it created a lot of new jobs in factories, which allowed people to earn wages and live in cities. However, it also led to poor working conditions in many factories, with long hours and low pay, especially for children. Despite these challenges, industrialization helped economies grow and brought technological advancements that made life easier in the long run. Another important impact of industrialization was the growth of transportation networks. With the invention of the steam engine, trains and ships became faster, making it easier to transport goods and people across long distances. This helped businesses grow and allowed for the exchange of ideas and products between countries. Overall, industrialization was a turning point in history. It not only changed the way people worked and lived, but it also shaped the world we live in today, with modern cities, industries, and technologies that have all evolved from that period.
Question 2. Describe a historical building you have visited. You should say where it is, what it looks like, what it is used for now, and explain why you found it interesting.
One historical building I visited is the Colosseum in Rome, Italy. This old amphitheater, built almost 2,000 years ago, shows how skilled the Romans were at building and how important their culture was. Visiting the Colosseum was like stepping back in time to an era of gladiator games and grand public events. The structure is massive, with an unusual oval shape and many levels of arches. Even though some parts are broken, you can still see the detailed design and the tunnels below where animals and gladiators were kept before going into the arena. Standing there, I could picture the loud crowds and exciting events that happened long ago. The scale and history of the building are truly impressive. Today, the Colosseum is one of the most iconic landmarks in Europe and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It attracts millions of visitors every year, offering guided tours that explain its history and importance in ancient Roman life. It also serves as a reminder of how architecture and culture have evolved over centuries. Despite being centuries old, the Colosseum remains a symbol of Rome and its incredible past. What struck me most was how advanced the Romans were in creating such a structure without modern technology. The Colosseum not only reflects their engineering skills, but also their sense of community and entertainment. Standing in its massive arena, I felt a deep connection to history and admired the legacy it represents. It's a must-see destination for anyone visiting Europe.
That's the end of part 2. Now we are going to move to part 3. Why do you think it's important for people to learn about history?
Learning about history is crucial because it helps us understand the present and make informed decisions for the future. History teaches us about the mistakes and successes of previous generations, providing valuable lessons. For instance, understanding past wars can guide us in preventing future conflicts.
How do historical events shape the culture of a country?
Historical events shape a country's culture by influencing its values, traditions, and way of life. For example, independence movements can create a sense of national pride and bring people together through shared identity. Events in history also inspire art, music, and literature, leaving a lasting impact on cultural expression.
In what ways can studying history benefit young people today?
Learning history can really help young people see the world in a bigger way. It teaches them to think carefully by looking at past events and understanding the outcomes of different choices. Plus, history is full of inspiring stories about people who overcame challenges, which can encourage young people to face their own problems with confidence.
Why do people visit historical buildings?
People visit historical buildings to learn about history and culture. These places show how people lived in the past and help us understand their traditions. Visiting them can also be inspiring and enjoyable. Additionally, these visits often provide a sense of connection to heritage and identity.
Do you think it's important to preserve old buildings?
Yes, preserving old buildings is important because they're a part of our heritage. They tell stories about our past and keep history alive for future generations to learn from and appreciate. These buildings can also attract tourism, boosting local economies and fostering cultural pride. Additionally, they help maintain the character and charm of a city or town.
What challenges do you think historical buildings face today?
Many historical buildings face issues like pollution, lack of maintenance, and overcrowding. Modern development also threatens their preservation. These challenges make it harder to protect them for the future. Climate change is another concern, as extreme weather can cause significant damage over time. Limited funding for restoration projects makes it harder to preserve these buildings.
That's the end of today's video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any future videos.